bring you OJ Simpson coverage of the civil trial on Fridays, but today we just could not wait till Friday. On today's show, you're going to hear an exclusive 1985 videotape in which OJ Simpson brags that he raped Nicole and had an affair outside their marriage. These bombshell revelations come as OJ's wrongful death trial enters its third week now. And adding even more drama to this week's news, a courthouse intern accuses OJ of sexual harassment. Now, while this news is swirling outside the civil trial, inside, the focus is on evidence that did not come up in OJ's criminal trial. Keeping us up to date with up-to-the-minute news with her permanent seat inside the trial, Inside Edition senior correspondent and chief legal analyst Star Jones is joining us from outside the Santa Monica Courthouse. Quite a day out there, Star.
Let me tell you something, Rolonda. It seems as if I'm destined every time I sit in this chair to bring you just the regular news of the day, the news of the week. All hell is broken loose in and outside the courtroom at the OJ Simpson civil trial.
Harassment charges on OJ. How did this happen?
Well, let's not use the word charges because we want to be as clear as we can. This is a claim in the USA Today that a young 18-year-old court intern, this is a woman who works with the public information officer here, kind of coordinating between the media and the court system. And she has most of her interaction with the media. According to this article, she claims that OJ Simpson has made inappropriate comments and inappropriate gestures and has in fact asked her out to the point where she is uncomfortable and she was afraid that she was going to lose her job. All of this came as a bombshell today. Well, you know me, the first thing I do is I called OJ Simpson himself and he sat down with me exclusively and talked about these allegations.
We have a portion of Inside Edition's exclusive interview with OJ Simpson and reporter Star Jones. Let's take a look at that tape now.
Have you ever asked this young woman out?
Never. As I said, I only had the one. I don't ever recall talking to her other than she's saying hi when I'm with you guys or all the right reporters.
What's with this allegation that you made a obscene gesture as if you were going to lift her skirt in the courtroom?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't comment on what I don't know. But I find it curious in there. I don't see any quotes by anybody.
Star, what was your reaction to the way he came across to you?
Well, I got to tell you, the first thing is I spoke to him very early this morning, and he was absolutely outraged. He said, you know, Star, normally I wouldn't say anything because if I reacted every single time something new came out in a newspaper or on the television about me, that's all I'd be doing is reacting. He said, but in this specific instance, this did not occur. He said it's his normal nature to be flirty or nice to all the reporters, men and women, and that's something that I can vouch for because he is extremely open to the reporters who are out there. Sometimes the lawyer in me says, why is he talking to us? But the reporter in me, of course, is sitting there eating it up. He's very much open to everyone, and he says he remembers this young woman very specifically being very flirty, very giggly around him, and the USA Today reporter himself making a comment to OJ, and OJ thought that the reporter was trying to elicit some kind of response, and he goes on to tell me that he was smart enough to say, you got to be kidding me, man, you know this would be all over the press if I ever made any move towards her.
Well,
he also,
I was just going to say that I was reading at the AP Wire, the Associated Press, and it says here that Amber McGrath, the high school senior working part-time on Simpson's wrongful death trial, was visibly shaken when she returned to work after telling a newspaper, USA Today, she was upset and frightened. I think what it is she was overwhelmed by the press attention. Rolonda, you cannot imagine what it is to be an 18-year-old woman standing in the courthouse and the throng of press corps come swooping down on you, and you are faced with your entire personal life out in the newspaper. And the newspaper may give you the words, but then the broadcast media gives those words life. And these words have life right now. So now you have the back and forth. I can tell you a little bit more inside information. It seems as if the court, meaning Judge Fujisaki, Simpson's attorneys, the young woman herself, and her supervisor met with the judge in private, and she did not return to the courtroom after that private meeting. Well, let's get some other reactions also from Los Angeles. Joining us now, some familiar faces. OJ's good friend and supporter, civil trial attorney Leo Terrell. Also from Los Angeles, former Superior Court Judge Burton Katz. Gentlemen, your reaction to this bombshell news?
This is outrageous. I mean, first of all, let me say something right now. This hurt OJ Simpson chance to get a fair trial. Remember, this jury is not sequestered. And this woman got her 15 minutes of fame right now, and she doesn't have any facts to prove that OJ Simpson did any of this other than what we reported in the newspaper. And this is hurting his chance to get a fair and impartial trial.
Rolonda, let me suggest to you that I happen to know.
Ridiculous.
Let me suggest to you that I happen to know the deputy sheriff who was in the courtroom, Vicki McCowan, who made a motion to OJ to cut it off when he was making the motion to lift her skirt off.
Oh, please,
she is totally credible.
Don't say that.
Totally credible. You are wrong.
That's wrong. There is no reference to that. Bring that woman here right now. Bring that deputy.
One at a time, gentlemen, please. One at a time. Bert, so, Bert, what are you saying? That he go on and repeat what you just said there.
Yes, what I'm trying to say is that Vicki McCowan, who's a deputy sheriff who sits right at the desk, right just where the attorneys are, behind the attorneys, saw OJ making.
Bring her on the show. Don't believe him.
Leo, please let him complete his thought. Bert.
Lifting up the skirt with emotion, and she just said no, like that. And
you
in
know what,
addition
we
to
need
which,
to be
wait a
clear
minute,
on
he's a
something,
mind
Rolonda, just so that our audience understands. The allegation is not that OJ Simpson lifted up the skirt.
That's right.
The allegation,
I didn't say
because
that.
wait a minute, Bert, because I'm listening to you, and Judge Katz, we want to be clear on the facts. The issue is not whether or not he lifted this young woman's skirt. That's never been the accusation.
That's never been the accusation. You apologize right now. You apologize.
Beg your pardon.
You apologize on TV. You're wrong.
In the newspaper is that OJ Simpson made a gesture.
That's what I said.
Her skirt.
That's what I said, Star.
Excuse me, that's not the impression that you were leaving the audience with.
That's not.
We need to be real clear.
I'm very clear about it.
We are using that. Now, let's be
Star,
real clear.
may I finish, please?
It was a gesture that people are accusing
Well, the
him
bottom
of,
line
okay?
is that the girl went to the newspaper and said that she was shaken, said that she was frightened.
Please. She wants 15 minutes of fame.
Excuse me, let me finish. Rolonda, my point is also at the metal detector, allegedly, he turned back as he's going through the metal detector and said,
gossip. He's a gossip.
I want her. Now,
please.
when you take that together, with the boasting of the rape of Nicole, you see an attitude.
This is why he cannot get a fair trial. This type of nonsense.
Well, this is the type of stuff we're going to talk about throughout today's coverage. We're also
Public apology.
Okay, just wait just 1 second, guys. When we come back, we, as I said, have some exclusive videotape from 11 years ago of OJ bragging he raped Nicole and had an affair outside their marriage. Is this a cold-hearted confession, or is it just boastful talk? We're going to discuss that when we return.
I was able to, as a runner anyway, dominate the game. I know her out, and then she won't want to give it up. I raped Nicole. Well, so we had a good marriage.
Quite a heated discussion here as we're talking OJ round 2. We usually bring these OJ coverage of the wrongful death trial to you on Friday, but because of some breaking news, we decided to come to you in the middle of the week. We have some exclusive tape from 11 years ago with OJ saying that he raped Nicole and had an affair outside of the marriage. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to talk with Gloria Allred, who is joining us. She's the former attorney to the Brown family. I want to play this tape for you, Gloria, and as for all of us as we listen to this. 11 years ago, this tape was videotaped by a friend of OJ's. His name is Skip Krause. You're going to see him on this videotape. Skip was picking OJ up in a limousine, we understand, to take him to the Pro Football Hall of Fame when Skip reportedly, accidentally, left the video camera on the limousine floor. I want you to listen closely now to this tape where OJ says that he raped Nicole.
Hey, OJ, you're going to have to pay me for this one. Yeah. Smile.
How's it going?
I was talking about a football player, something that he did and almost got in quite a bit of trouble. And for some reason, that clicked it off for him to tell about he and Nicole.
Yeah, but a little before my time, but still.
He raped.
Raped?
No, this didn't get out. He was my...
No.
He got him off fast. I mean, he didn't really rape her. She
I know
went
her
out.
out, then she won't want to give it up. I raped Nicole.
Well,
so we ended up getting married.
Gloria Allred, what do you think of this tape?
Well, I just think it's outrageous. We have to remember that rape is an act of violence. So here is a tape in which Mr. Simpson appears to be volunteering that he committed an act of violence on Nicole as a young woman. And what's worse is he appears to be not experiencing any kind of remorse about it, not feeling that he should be embarrassed about it, acting as though he had every right to do it, and so much so that he could say that to somebody that he knows and not fear that he would be criminally prosecuted, not fear that he would be a pariah to his friends if he acknowledged what he did. I think it's shocking.
Leo?
Wait, let's get something straight right now. I know OJ, and I know this for a fact. Ladies and gentlemen, he did not rape his wife. Now, Gloria doesn't have any facts to say that. This thing is 11 years old. If you take in the total context, that guy who claims he's OJ's friend, who he's not, brought up that subject at all, and OJ Simpson has never raped his wife.
Leo,
Gloria,
some people would say if
Not
you never
true.
raped your wife, then why even say that?
You know, I am not going to condone the jock humor in that car. I'm not going to do that as a civil rights attorney. But no one can bring up any facts from the Brown family, from Gloria Allred, from this guy who claims he's a friend, OJ Simpson ever raping Nicole.
Rolonda.
It's not true.
Rolonda.
Are you going to say next that this rape comment was contaminated or planted?
Oh, excuse me. You know what? If there was truth to that, wait a second. If there was truth to that, if there was truth to that, the DA's office would have had that. And this guy, Skip Krause, is doing that for money. M-O-N-E-Y. For money.
Okay, Leo, let Bert, I want you to say something, and I want you to be able to complete your thought. Leo, please let Bert complete his thought.
First of all, I believe that this statement, as outrageous as it is, showing that he believes that women are objects and everything else, and he has nothing but contempt for them and abuses them, is irrelevant to come into the civil trial. It's highly prejudicial. It's highly inflammatory. There's no corpus to prove that there was any rape whatsoever. So let's put that out of our hand, and I agree with Leo. With respect to the custody matter, however, we're talking about attitudes and fitness. There
was no children at the time.
Let me finish for a moment.
There was no children.
We're talking about now.
There was no children.
Whether this information...
How can it be relevant? There was no children.
Can I finish my thought?
Yes. Why is it relevant, Bert?
There's no children.
Okay, Leo, let him make his point.
I'll tell you why, Rolanda, because now we're talking about what's in the best interest of the children.
There's no children.
Let me finish. We're talking about now, the custody
How
hearing
can it be relevant?
And whether or not his attitude is such that he has no moral compass to guide the children and treat children as objects. And that's why he's unfit to be the father.
Okay, all right. Listen, during that same limousine ride, OJ tells Skip Krause that even though he had been married to Nicole Brown Simpson for 6 months at the time, he had a steamy tryst with Tawny Katz. First, we're going to listen to OJ talking about Tammy. Or Tawny rather, and then American Journal's Michelle Dabney Perez catches up with Tawny and gets this reaction to that tape.
I've been in love with this girl.
Yeah?
Her name was Tawny Katz. I just had her in New York. So I took her to the airport, and she says, does this have a blackout? All right, she sends this partition up, and we proceeded to go to work in the back. This is like, not yet, day before yesterday. We go to work in the back of this limousine.
He's apparently in the back of a limousine.
I've been in love with this girl. You ever see a movie called Bachelor Party?
Yes, just on.
Okay. You know the girl that he was getting ready to marry?
Yeah.
Her name was Tawny Katz. I just had her in New York. So I took her to the airport, and she...
And so what's the question?
Well, is this true what he's talking about?
Well,
he said he saw you on a film and loved it, and like fell in love with you immediately.
Mm-hmm.
What's your reaction?
I think that's very sweet. I think that's sweet.
And to the rest of this?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't even dignify that with an answer. And the other thing is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but the trial was over a few months ago, and the guy got this non-guilty verdict. So maybe we should just let him do the rest of it in peace. And thank you. I'd love to, but I'd rather not.
Thank you.
I'm interested in hearing what members of the audience said, because when Tawny there said the trial is over, many of you burst out into applause. I'd like to know what your thoughts are about this tape. Anybody want to speak real quickly here? What are you saying? Come on, stand up.
The trial is over, and I really think basically what she's trying to say is that they should leave it alone. And I'm also agreeing with Leo that it was dry humor, and a lot of men make a lot of wife jokes behind our back, and they really don't mean them at all.
And they talk about raping all the time, is that right?
When we come back, a man who is seldom at a loss for words, the former mayor of New York City and an attorney himself, Ed Koch, is going to join us, and he talks about his reaction and all the drama that is today surrounding OJ. Right after this.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
Interesting reactions to some of the things that were said about this tape. I asked the audience just what their reaction was about this news coming out that OJ is on tape saying that he raped Nicole. The lady over there said, hey, listen, it's just some husbands sitting around talking. It's like locker room stuff, and you took real offense to that.
Yes, I do. I had worked in the 70s with domestic violence victims, and these were white, affluent women. And at that time, no one believed white, affluent women can be beaten up because it was considered a minority problem. And I found that the sympathy has not changed. I mean, statements like that are just a symptomatic of how things are going today. Women are still being abused, they're raped, and it's just treated. And from a woman, it really disturbs me.
So you think this should be taken a lot more seriously than?
In the context of a society, not for OJ particularly. Just these are statements that are just reinforcing men's belief about how women should be treated in this society.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments about that? Any other comments? Well, I'm going to get your comment over here, but let me bring on some more folks who are joining us now in the OJ round 2, as we call it. The case has certainly divided the country along race lines as well. My next guest, former New York City Mayor Ed Koch, says he is disgusted by the African-American response to the criminal verdict with OJ. Magazine columnist Amy Pagnozzi says, why is all this outrage reserved just for a black man? What about the white men who get off scot-free? Major differing opinions here. Former Mayor Ed Koch, start off. You were disgusted with African-American response.
I tell you what I think was very destructive to race relations was the moment that the verdict was announced and they flashed with TV cameras to black churches and bars where blacks were congregated. And universally, there was cheering at the verdict. Now, I believe that most people in this country, you know, the country's 75% white, and if whites get turned off on black causes, blacks will not advance. It's only with cooperation that it happens. And there was this enormous feeling, and I had that same feeling. How can you, under these circumstances, cheer that verdict? Now, I can understand saying they didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't fight with that aspect, but to cheer after all of the evidence that had been adduced at the trial turned me off.
Amy, what about you? What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I don't think you can look at African Americans cheering in bars and things where TV cameras have been set up and churches as representative of what every single, I don't think anybody can guess what every single African American feels. First of all,
also at Howard University as well and other black law schools.
Let me tell you right now, that
all right.
Mayor Koch, that was wrong for you to make that statement. That case was not only the situation related to evidence, you know, there was that issue, that was a case of rape, an issue of rape. Unfortunately, African Americans are treated differently in the criminal justice system. And as a person who's Jewish American, you can understand how people who are persecuted. And it's shame for you to say that, sir, that African Americans, you're wrong.
I'm going to let Ed Koch respond, and then Amy, I'm going to get back to your statement.
Let me just say this. I served as an attorney in the South defending blacks who were persecuted.
Not relevant right now.
Now, please be quiet and allow me to talk. I mean, it's okay when you put on your little act with your fellow lawyer there.
Leo, let Ed Koch make his statement, please, and then I want to hear from Amy Pagnozzi. Leo, chill for a second.
Okay. Let me just say that I served as an attorney in the South in 1964, defending blacks against the persecution that they were subjected to. I do not perceive the trial of OJ as persecution. I thought that the evidence was overwhelming. I still say, please, Leo, give somebody a chance, will you? I still believe that, notwithstanding the fact that the evidence was overwhelming, that there could be people on the jury who would say they didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, even if they thought he was guilty.
Amy, I want to hear what you have to say.
I don't think that that jury was any more biased than any other jury in America, and I would like to know, where was your outrage when Klaus von Bülow got off, and William Kennedy Smith got off,
No, I was outraged.
Bernie Getz, Bernie Getz in New York City.
Firstly,
and what about Meyer Kahan?
Do you want to let me talk?
Cases?
Firstly, for you to mention Bernie Getz is ridiculous. Bernie Getz was actually punished, and I believe that the vast majority of people, blacks and whites, until black leadership turned blacks against Bernie Getz, they overwhelmingly believed that just as a young black in a similar situation defended himself, that Bernie Getz had a right to defend himself. But there's no reason to get into that. All I'm simply saying is it is outrageous and foolish for the black community to align itself with someone who is held in such low regard after a trial that everybody saw is foolish for the black community.
Don't speak for the black community.
I don't
You have no authority. Don't give us your opinions about black community, or you have no basis for saying that. What about you? You ignored Mark Thurman. This is an issue of race, and you're denying that right now. Don't speak for the black community. I'm not going to stay on this show if you're going to speak for the black community.
When I come back, let's try to get back into the civil trial, folks. The criminal trial is over. Let's get back into the civil trial and what's going on, and some of these breaking news stories that have happened today. What about those expensive shoes of OJ's, for instance? Now, OJ claims that he would never wear those Bruno Magli shoes because they were too ugly. Well, attorney Raul Felder says that if the shoe fits, OJ's going down. We'll talk with him right after this. Some debate going on here during the commercial break. This lady and you were getting going. Let's see, give your platform.
Well, my answer to what Mayor Katz was saying about why all the black people were in the bars cheering, because it was a lot of redemption for years and years ago. A black man was being guilty, being lynched for years, and everybody was cheering, being proud of the black man finally being innocent out of one time.
Well, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Does that mean that if you have a black charged with criminality, and most crimes by blacks are against other blacks, that if it's against a black, that it will be okay to convict him, but if it's against a white, the black consciousness will say we'll be happy even if he's guilty to exonerate him? I don't think that makes any sense.
What do you say?
I think that what happened, Mayor Koch and everyone, is it wasn't so much the crime. I think the cause overcame the crime. People were cheering for this cause, which this gentleman brought up.
What cause?
The cause of the black person, the black man being venerated and being said not guilty.
So that any time a black person guilty of a crime is exonerated.
Amy Pagnozzi, let me hear what you have to say. Let's hear what Amy has to say, please.
Look, I was like minorly distressed by the cheering too, but the thing that needs to be pointed out here is that women cheered all over the place when Lorena Bobbitt got off, okay? She was guilty as hell, and nobody is indicting feminism because Lorena Bobbitt got off and women cheered. Nobody is saying all women hate men.
Amy,
because
there was great criticism.
Let's bring Attorney Raul Felder.
Everybody else can cut slack, except, in my opinion, when African Americans react with a little bit, maybe justified anger.
Do you think he was guilty?
Yes, I think he was guilty.
And are you happy? Are you happy that someone that you think is guilty was acquitted? Are you happy about that?
No, I'm not happy about it, but I think this is totally out of control already.
Let's go to Raul Felder. Raul Felder has been following this case very closely as we have gone from the criminal trial now into the civil trial. Your reaction, not only to what people are still talking about these days, but some of the recent news that just hit.
Well, Rolonda, I was there and I watched it. I think race is the wrong question here. I think what was demonstrated here is more of a class situation. I think the dirty little secret in America is there's one kind of justice if you got lots of money, and there's another kind if you don't have money. And what happened here was just as bad as what happened with William Kennedy Smith. You had vaguely competent prosecutors against really competent defense lawyers, and that's what happened. Unfortunately, you had a case where it was a black man, so suddenly everybody said, no, it's a racial issue. This was a black man who rejected his race for the most part, so I don't think it's a black issue. I think it's an issue of people not having money.
Let me ask you this. As we're watching this civil trial, it's entering its third week, we've got this videotape that has come out from 11 years ago in which OJ says that he raped Nicole and had an affair outside the marriage. You have this young intern, this 18-year-old, saying that she was sexually harassed by
Both
OJ.
immaterial to this trial.
Okay, let me hear Raoul Felder's reaction to that.
I don't think it's so immaterial, because once you let in domestic violence, as even Judge Ito let in, he made many mistakes, that wasn't one of them, I think, then where do you stop? And I think there's a point here. And interestingly enough, by the way, Mr. Simpson did not say he didn't, he said, I don't know, when he was asked directly, as far as what I saw in the tape. And the same thing about this young lady, she said, oh, give me a break, or it's irrelevant. So I would have been happier if he said it never happened, or, you know, there was two other guys.
Hey, Raul, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, Bert.
Sure. It seems to me that the prejudicial effect far outweighs the probative value. It's totally unfair to let this type of evidence come in the civil trial. As a judge and a former judge, I can tell you I'd never let it in.
Well, it's a judgment call, basically, Bert, right?
Gloria, there have been some attacks by the defense on Nicole. So there were some things that were said about Nicole during this civil trial that were rather dicey as well. Your reaction to that, is that different than your reaction to these things that are being said about OJ?
Well, I think that the defense is going to try to show that Nicole is somehow a person who maybe brought these things on herself. I don't know, because they launched an opening smear where they trashed her, where they demeaned her. It appears that it's not enough that Mr. Simpson beat her up during her lifetime. It's not enough that she has been murdered and left 2 children now motherless. And it's not enough that Mr. Simpson now says on a videotape from 1985 that he raped his wife. Now he apparently allows his own defense lawyers to launch an attack which is meant to beat her memory to death in the minds of those who love and who cherish her. What kind of monster would allow this to happen when his 2 children are alive and might hear this about their mother? I think it's the act of a desperate man.
You know, Rolonda, there's a problem. There's a legal problem, though. And here's what it is. OJ has been accused of being obsessive and compulsive in respect to that relationship, and that when he couldn't have her, he killed her, basically. All right, the ultimate domination of control. Well, he has to meet that. How does he meet it? He shows that he wasn't the one that was interested in the reconciliation, that she was, and then what she did is she engaged in undermining the process by going around with pimps and druggies and promiscuous conduct.
So what is that?
Here's the point. Let me get the point. Let me finish the point.
Wait a minute.
Can I finish?
Wait, finish the point. Raoul, I want to hear from you, and Gloria, I'll get your
Here's the point, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but here's the point, and he has a right to present that, and that is that therefore he had no motive. His anger wasn't towards her because she severed the relationship. His anger is because she was exposing the children to this world, and that's why he was upset, and it wasn't directed towards her.
Raoul,
so he has every legitimate right to present that.
Raoul, your reaction?
I think this was one of the wackier things that I ever saw in a trial, and I think even Leo will agree with me. What's the argument? She cut her own throat, or she deserved to have a throat cut? If she was all these things, she's promiscuous, does that mean it's open season to cut people's throats?
No, we're talking about the dynamics of the relationship that existed.
Yeah, but you know what?
That's what you have to understand.
First of all, the judge has decided that there is no evidence that anyone else did it. There is no physical evidence that's been presented that anyone who was a prostitute or a drug dealer killed Nicole.
We're not talking about third parties.
No, but what's the point then of bringing up any association with prostitutes or with drug dealers?
Gloria,
no, the whole point is to try to smear Nicole, and I hope that boomerangs on the defense, because to smear the mother of these young children, the murder victim, I think is really wrong and offensive, and I hope the jury is angry at the defense.
Part of the civil trial are things like the passport, a loaded revolver, a goatee and mustache disguise with a receipt. Some of the things that we know came out of OJ's Bronco. What does that now tell us about that slow-speed car chase? And how are we as the public, as we watch this trial, supposed to look at what could be a smear campaign? We'll talk about that right after this.
Now, if you're going to be in the New York area and would like free tickets to Rolonda, well, please call us at 212-650-2060.
The civil case on O.J. Simpson has now let the jury and the public know what O.J. had with him during that infamous car chase. Some of those things on that list: a passport, a loaded .357 revolver, a goatee and mustache disguised with receipt, a set of keys to Nicole's condo, NFL Hall of Fame ring, changes of underwear, $8,000 in cash. Gloria, you say that some of the contents found in O.J.'s car look suspicious to you. Why do you say that?
Well, I've never known a man who was going to visit his wife's grave who felt the necessity of taking along a change of underwear in order to do that. So one has to wonder, what is that underwear doing there, along with the gun, the passport, the cash? And I think that's reason that many people think that, in fact, he was trying to perhaps escape or evade arrest rather than visiting Nicole's grave.
Leo, that's a good argument. You're a friend. Does that news scare you to hear what came out of that Bronco?
Absolutely not. You know what? If we want to know the truth, ladies and gentlemen, we'll never know the truth for one reason. Mark Fuhrman got immunity. He's in Idaho. If the district attorney in Gilgar City, you will never prosecute Al Cowling. Give him immunity, let him testify as to what went on in that Bronco chase, and let the public know instead of Gloria guessing. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. We'll never know because the DA is holding these charges over Al Cowling.
You know, Rolonda,
You and I agree, Leo. That's one place where you and I agree. I'd like to see Al Cowlings get immunity from the DA, too. Let's hear his testimony.
Gilgar City will not lift these charges.
Raul, what are you saying?
You know, Rolonda, can I jump in for a second?
Just 1 second, Bert. Raul's saying something. I'll come back to you.
I think Bert knows this, maybe everybody else does. There is a tape that the police have because he was speaking to his mother on a cell phone.
That's right.
And he's not saying, I'm visiting any grave. In fact, she's saying, give yourself up. She said, give yourself up and say that you could go to a doctor.
You know what's so important?
Let Al Cowlings testify.
What's so important, Bert?
I'll tell you what's so important is that it's so profound that a man that is allegedly innocent wants to commit suicide, deprive his children who have just lost their mother of the last parent. Think about it. Would you do that if you were innocent?
You know District Attorney Garcetti will never try Al Cowling. Al Cowling should testify, but he can't because Gilgar City playing politics right now.
They should give him immunity and let AC testify. I agree with Leo. Leo's right.
This is evidence that was not in the criminal trial. How would you play this if you were on the other side and this got put on the table?
This is very powerful evidence. For instance, the disguise he bought on May 23rd. Why does somebody need a disguise? This is dynamite stuff, and I think it's going to affect the civil trial, and it's going to be very hard to deal with. Now, he was at Oxford, OJ was Oxford, and he was asked that same question by one of the students at the debating society, and he basically said, I was upset, I had a bad hair day. Now, of course, these kids were not trained. They should have asked all these questions. Well, what did the money have to do with the gun and all this business? But he doesn't have a sensible explanation.
You just got back from Oxford, where O.J. was this summer. What are they saying now? Are they still as interested in this O.J. case? Are the students there still?
Britain is absorbed with O.J. They're taken by it. They're smitten by it. And basically, the approach was negative to him at Oxford, except I think they made a mistake by inviting him. I mean, it's one thing if he's acquitted. That means he wasn't guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But you don't invite him into your home, so to speak. At least if there's a lot of silverware around or knives around, you wouldn't do it.
Oh, I see. Everybody else can make millions of dollars. O.J. Simpson can't earn a living, right? O.J. Simpson can't do anything. Everybody want to bring this man down. Why can't he earn a living like everyone else?
If you cut the throats of two people, I mean, it gives you a little pause before you
get two people.
Now, the man was found not guilty.
Shame on you.
Yes.
That's your opinion.
Quickly from Ed Koch.
The issue of criminality is over. He cannot be retried on that, no matter what the judgment is in the court of public opinion. But that's not what's now before the court. This is a civil matter. This is a matter where you don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, but by a preponderance of the evidence. Where is the evidence? I believe, and we'll soon see, that there is enormous evidence so that the outcome will be different.
An O.J. civil juror was sickened after watching the crime scenes or looking at the photos of the crime scenes and was dismissed. But some say that O.J. does not seem to be taking the civil case as seriously as the criminal case. How and will that sway the jury? We will talk about that when we come back as well.
OJ, you're a murderer. Good morning, murderer. Good morning, murderer. How you doing, murderer? Who is the murderer? Good morning, murderer.
How often is OJ showing up during the civil case? And if OJ is not in the courtroom daily, does that send a message to the jurors? Leo, Bert, I know that you guys have to go, and I want to say goodbye to you, but I'd like you to respond to that just before you leave. How does OJ showing up affect?
I know where he's at. I know where he's at. He's fighting for his children. He's in the other court because they're playing games with him. They're making him go to 2 courts at the same time. He has told me this. He is fighting for Justin and Sydney first. This civil case is secondary.
You asked, Rolonda, you asked how it plays before this jury. Remember, they're not sequestered. It doesn't play well. And when he was asked where he was, he says, well, I have some other important things in my life.
No, that's not true.
No, that's what he said.
Children are more important than money.
They don't know about the fact that he may be attending a custody hearing now.
Everyone knows.
And not at this point. And so they're hearing that, and they don't see him.
Rolonda, there have been days when he has not been there, when there has not been any custody trial in progress. So let's set the record straight. And I think his
That's not true. There's been settlement discussion. You're not going to go. You don't know that. That's wrong.
I'd like to be able to finish.
But what kind of impact, what kind of impression is this sending out? If he doesn't come, whatever he's doing, if he's not in the courtroom where his name is coming up, I mean, what kind of response or what kind of reaction are you getting, or what effect might it have for those who are closely watching the civil trial?
Well, that's the key question. Take that, and if, in fact, the jurors know that he often comes into court smirking and swaggering seemingly making light of the proceeding in which he is now entering.
Very true.
I think that many of them may feel that he is not showing a proper respect for the solemnity of the proceedings and what is at issue, which is the death, the horrible, brutal murder of 2 people.
Very quickly, before we lose you guys, just to talk about the Bruno Magli shoes with OJ saying, I'd never wear shoes like that, they're too ugly.
This thing is so profound and important. They're going to show him with a photograph of these so-called...
Okay, let me hear you one at a time, very quickly. Bert, one sentence. Why is it important?
It is important because it's a critical point of evidence right at the crime scene. He says he never had shoes, didn't wear it. They're going to have a photograph showing he did. His credibility is through.
Leo, what do you say?
Those shoes that are in the photograph are not the shoes that made those footprints. And he knows that. He's misrepresenting that. Listeners, viewers don't believe this.
Okay, we want to thank you both, Leo, Bert, for being with us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Should we, Raul, Ed, and Amy, look at this civil trial? We are going into our 4th week, the 3rd week, and then we're going to keep going here. And I'm just wondering, the custody battle is going on, this is going on, the tape is coming out, there's lots of talk. How should we, as the American public, really take a look at this?
The best we could hope for the family, it'll bring some closure emotionally. Other than that, I don't think OJ could care less here. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to get a verdict of millions of dollars. The appeals will go on 2 years. They'll never collect a dime. Lawyers will either have to be paid or work on a contingency. They're not going to do it. Never collect. And OJ will get better seats in restaurants than any of us ever will. And that's going to be the end of the tale.
Do you agree with that, Ed Koch?
No, I do believe that if there is a judgment awarded, that it will be collected. Because he's good for the judgment. I mean, he is a millionaire, and they will go after him.
A miracle's going to happen. He's going to lose all his money. You're going to see it happens to everybody who gets big judgments against him. He'll move to Europe. They will never get a dime, Mayor.
Rolonda, I think what's really important is that there are many people who feel that there should be a judgment against Mr. Simpson. Whether or not anything is collected is a stage that we're not anywhere near to yet. Okay. But the real question is whether another jury is going to find, by preponderance of the evidence, that he in fact is the cause of the death of Nicole and Ron, and that's what many people are waiting to see.
Okay, I want to thank Gloria Allred for being here with us as well. Thank you so very much. When we come back, Star Jones is going to be back with us with the latest from the courthouse and an update. We'll be right back in a minute. I also want to get your... Let's go right back out to California now with legal correspondent Star Jones, who has a permanent seat in the courtroom. Star, what can we expect next week based upon all that has hit us today?
Well, Rolonda, we've gone through the identification of the evidence, which is basically the discovery of the bodies and everything that came with it. Then we dealt with this week the collection of that evidence. Next week we expect to see testimony on the analysis of that evidence. So what we'll probably do is start to get into the DNA and the blood typing. And that's the evidence which is the strongest against OJ Simpson. Of course, the defense says keep an open mind until it's their turn in the courtroom. And I can tell you the one thing that's been happening this week is that the defense has been increasingly frustrated because the judge is basically saying to them, you're hamstrung. We're holding you to just what the plaintiffs are putting in their case in chief. The defense is going to have to recall all of the witnesses that they want to make their case against the plaintiff's arguments. And so that's been a little bit disjointed this time. You know, for instance, Van Adder and Lang were on the witness stand for weeks at a time. We did the same amount of witnesses in 1 week, which took them a month to do in the criminal trial. This case is moving quickly, Rolonda.
I see, and a lot coming out. I mean, I can, who knows what we're going to hear next week.
Every single time I think that we have heard it all, and I'm arguing and I'm saying to my editors, there's no news coming out of here. This is the same stuff that we've heard. I am increasingly surprised. And so I'll tell you, nothing surprises me anymore.
Are you waiting for anything else from this Amber McGrath, this 18-year-old intern who claims that she was sexually harassed by OJ?
Well, there's definitely going to have to be an investigation if, in fact, you know, Mr. Simpson says that this did not occur. She's saying she's being sexually harassed. She may or may not be returning to her position there as an intern, and I don't know if Team OJ is going to be the one that wants her removed, because obviously this is something that could be a volatile situation or a powder keg waiting to explode. This is not what you want to hold up the court, you know, for a half hour or an hour in the morning with a jury waiting. So we may hear a little bit more on Ambergate, as everyone down here at Camp OJ is calling it.
Unbelievable. We'll have some final thoughts when we return. We were just sitting here talking amongst ourselves here in the audience and saying we never know what's going to happen in the weeks to come. I'd like to thank all of my guests for joining us for this week. And next Friday here in our studio, we're going to have Skip Krause here, who is the man who taped that explosive video of OJ admitting that he raped Nicole and was having an affair while married to her. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow on Rolonda.
Hey, did you enjoy that? If so, hit the like button so we'll get an idea of the types of topics you like. Also, be sure to hit the notification button and subscribe so that every time a new video is uploaded, you'll be the first to know.